All right, we should be live to YouTube now. And I'm ready to start the commercial as soon as you guys are. All good? And I don't know if you'll hear this part, but I'll signal you. In fact, I'll just pull down a layer that you see in front when each thing ends, okay? If that makes sense. Okay.
Support for Wrong About Everything comes from Minnesota's credit unions. Credit unions are locally based, member-owned financial cooperatives that return earnings to members through higher savings rates, lower loan rates, and reduced fees. Visit mncun.org for more information.
You just got a twofer today. It's just it's Brallison.
It's the Brallison show.
It's the Brallison show, and everyone, to sound like a TikTok influencer, everyone's been asking us, when are we going to have our, just the two of us? Well, to our public, here it is.
Give the people what they want. We're going to go through.
Got to give the people what they want.
Skincare, hair care, holiday fashions, right, Brian?
All of those things. I'm wearing a T-shirt that I bought in the Hudson Valley of New York, so it is well traveled. And your living room looks very cozy. Lots of nice candles. Seems warm.
A home without candles is not a home at all.
Yes. And I'm in my son's room because it's the only room that's clean in the house because he's in Iowa at college, and it's far enough away from the dog that you won't hear the dog barking. I was not on last week. I had a little bit of surgery. The surgery went well. The recovery is hit and miss. It's having a little bit of pain and uncomfortable, but in a couple of weeks, I will be right as rain. So thank you to everybody who responded on Facebook to that. Javier is in Australia, putting a shrimp on the Barbie or whatever it is that you do down under. Amy had a work conflict, so you got just the two of us. And we are not in the Minnesota Credit Union Network studios, deep within the recesses of MBC Studios. But we promise you that our very lovely, talented, and handsome producer, Gabe Noah, he is there. We're making him be there. So we're not there, and we apologize for the zooming.
Everyone's been asking
we got a big show.
Everyone's been asking me if it's lonely here alone, and it is.
Everybody.
Everyone's been asking me. Yeah.
Everybody. Well, let's talk about a couple other of our fine sponsors, like the Minnesota Licensed Beverage Association. Since 1952, the Minnesota Licensed Beverage Association has been helping licensed beverage retailers in the state of Minnesota with information resources, educational programs, and government affairs services designed to promote and protect their business. All MLBA members know that with the MLBA, they are not alone. And speaking of not being alone, you know who's not alone? Mike Bryant, because he's got a nice big firm there with Bradshaw and Bryant. Their entire team of attorneys and staff is dedicated to providing the legal advice you need, combined with the service and personal attention you deserve. If you have questions about how they can assist you with a personal injury, wrongful death, or criminal defense matter, do not hesitate to contact them. Consultations are free. Please contact them at 800-770-7008 or at minnesotapersonalinjury.com. Well, I was very surprised today, Gabe and Allison. We know that our own Governor Walz has, he has a national profile now. And that means that he has famous friends and famous foes. but a very, very big name has decided that they are going to challenge him for the DFL nomination for governor. The one, the only Bill Gates Jr. Yes, yes. Bill Gates Jr.
For those listening at home, we are looking at a visual photo of Bill Gates Jr., a resident of Minnesota, and from we can tell, absolutely no relation to the founder of Microsoft. Nonetheless,
we don't know that. We don't know that.
Also a resident of behind your refrigerator. He looks like someone who grew up there with his lack of lips and yeah. Anyway.
We should be nice because this is Minnesota. Anything's possible.
Yes.
But yeah,
our governor.
He very much could be our governor, so we should be kind.
And he's a clear authoritarian by his posture.
I saw that it was mentioned that he was running. I went to his campaign to the campaign finance board site, kind of saw some of his stuff, and then I found his website, which is Spartan. Not a lot there to know yet, but this picture is it's something. So hopefully you're watching us on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Send it to a friend. But he has struck a pose that is it's conveying strength for sure, and that he wants to put you into your dream home by being a realtor or something like that. But
see, I'm getting private equity. I
say he owns 3 Pizza Huts.
I think he's looking at pediatric dental offices, and he's going to purchase all of them to create efficiencies for doctors. That's what it's giving.
I see that too now.
Those are all, whether it's retail or whether it's selling homes or rehabbing distressed properties, whatever it might be. Those are all very important skills if he has them to be the next governor of the state of Minnesota. So anyway, Mr. Gates, best of luck to you. But it's interesting. We don't need to speculate. We've talked about it on other shows. But every week that goes on where Governor Walz is getting kicked around on the fraud issue and then hasn't named a running mate just kind of increases the chatter amongst the political class that he is not 100% guaranteed to actually be running for his seat. We have no information, obviously, that he's not, so we're not trying to start a rumor or anything like that. But the rumor has been started, and we are keeping an eye on that. We've heard names bandied about for lieutenant governor, but they have not made anything official. Have you heard anything new on timing or anything like that, Allison?
I haven't. I've also heard rumors, but I can say that at this point they are truly just rumors. There's no indication from the Walz camp that they are not moving forward with the re-election campaign in 2026. So I just want to publicly state that.
It's definitely raising money and
raising a lot of money.
Yeah. So other than the rumors and then no lieutenant governor, there's not really much. There's smoke, not fire, and the smoke might be coming from another.
I was like, it's manufactured smoke from an outside.
You know what? It could have been from Bill Gates Jr. He could have been playing the long game here for all we know. So. Yeah. But anyway, so I mentioned a little bit earlier that Governor Walz in the state of Minnesota has, for very unfortunate reasons, been kind of back on the national stage. And we have talked about the fraud, both allegations and convictions in the state of Minnesota. And nobody on the right or the left is proud of what is happening in Minnesota and the money that is not going for its intended purposes. But President Trump has taken it to another level, which is, of course, what President Trump does. So there's definitely talk that there is some link between the pilfered funds and those funds going to terrorist organizations in East Africa That is, of course, being disputed. But on the federal level, they are saying they're going to look into that, which is what they should do: look into it, prove it or not prove it. But that means that this is an area that President Trump and a lot of Republicans on the national stage have been focusing in on, and it has led to name calling, which is, of course, also something that President Trump likes to do, where he has labeled the Somali population in the state of Minnesota as garbage. And you can just guess how well that has gone over, both in that community and with Minnesota citizens.
Well, just with any human who doesn't refer to an entire population as garbage. I mean, it's just it's Trump. It's just another inflammatory, dehumanizing statement to come out of his mouth. I think as Democrats, I've been thinking a lot about this, fraud and abuse of public dollars it makes me outraged, and it does make so many Democrats outraged, because as a party that does push for and believes in a strong public sector and a strong government, the only way that you can build faith in that is to not have corruption and fraud. And so anytime programs, public resources are pilfered and used and wasted and frankly stolen from their intended uses, and in our case in Minnesota, it's low-income kids, it's kids, their food, it's kids with disabilities, it's disabled people, it's homeless people, it's homeless elders. It is the most vulnerable population that have serious issues that we are trying to solve. And so when the public resources are stolen fraudulently, it is infuriating, especially with a political ideology that the government and a bigger government is a better way. So
well, and in Minnesota, we have such a large Somali population that it's impossible to live, mostly, especially in the Twin Cities area, and not know Somali families and not know individuals. We have worked with them. We have been their neighbors. And so many of them are lovely people. And what is infuriating about what the tactics that the Trump administration has done is, we're not talking about fraud.
Yeah, no, you're talking about people, not fraud.
Yes, there is real, honest to God fraud. This is not made up. The people for everybody out there who thinks, oh, this is just Trump, maligning a group of people. There are no connections between the community and fraud. That is not true. 72 out of the 78 people in Feeding Our Future were from that community. There is a problem, but that is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the schoolyard name calling. We are talking about whether he's being presidential and having to defend an entire group of people that if he spent any time with the best and the brightest from that community, he wouldn't say the things that he is saying. Well, maybe he would, but they wouldn't be factual. And one of the things, and Allison looks like she's about to say something, but I just really want to commend Republican Senator Jim Abler, who has been on the program. I've known Jim 25 years, and he is a Republican that works very well across the aisle, both politically and culturally. And he sent a letter to President Trump, really kind of trying to take him to task for referring to the Somali immigrants as garbage. He said he was surprised by the comments, and he said in his letter, "I suggest you meet some of my Somali friends and see for yourself how they are woven into Minnesota's fabric of work, family, and community. Please join me," meaning Jim Abler, "and several dozen Somali men and women for an hour or two and see for yourself how fortunate we are to have them in our midst." Very commendable, very appropriate, politically courageous. Shouldn't have to be politically courageous, but these days it is. So I want to make sure to highlight him as somebody who works in the human services field. So he knows how damaging the actual real defined fraud is. And then his letter isn't about that. It has to be about the name calling.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate State Senator Abler. I appreciate working with him day to day. I guess I wasn't it the lack of there hasn't been a lot of Minnesota Republicans that have publicly denounced what the president has said. Multiple things can be true. We can speak against fraud and not attack at a community as well. Like you don't have to dehumanize people, and somehow that's in some correlated way saying that you are okay with fraud. But I really appreciated what Senator Abler wrote. Senator Abler, I have found, really walks in his faith. He is a strong Christian, and he, frankly, the Somali community is a strong Muslim community and a community of faith, and he has done a lot of interfaith work with them, and building bridges through that. And I just really appreciate him publicly taking a strong stance and denouncing, because it is flies in the face of those who talk the talk but aren't walking the walk. And I really appreciate that about him.
And to that point, in his letter, he also said, in the meantime, do not call them garbage. No man, woman, or child is more or less in the eyes of our Lord God Most High, and none of them are trash. We don't need to do this. And I don't say we as Republicans or whatever. I'm not really defining a group there either. But the fraud is real. We can talk about how do we stop, how do we prevent this? What happened to allow it to get this bad? We still don't even really know the scope of the fraud. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it was very disappointing. And this is something also that I just think it turns off regular voters. They don't want to hear Governor Walz call everybody Nazis and Gestapo. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear the Somali community called garbage. They don't want that stuff. The people who feed off of that are already voting for who they're voting for, and they're wrong. Senator Mark Johnson, the Senate Majority Leader, denounced the fraud not quite as directly as Senator Abler did, but then he also has to say, well, these are the other dehumanizing things that groups of people are being called, and the name calling back and forth. It's unbecoming of political adults that we have placed our trust in to deal with tens and tens and tens of billions of dollars of our state budget. These people are elected to do a job, and that is to make the state of Minnesota as healthy, productive, and work for its citizens as much as it can. And that's not happening if they're just in the schoolyard trying to score political points.
Yeah. And to be clear, like, Somali Minnesotans are citizens. They are residents. They're tax-paying, they're tax-paying residents of Minnesota. There are, unfortunately, some in the community who, have chosen a life of crime, frankly. What they're doing is, what those that have been accused and charged with, those are crimes. And this is not, but it's a fraction of a tiny percent of a large, beautiful, wonderful, entrepreneurial community that has been in Minnesota, now for 30 plus years. There are so many second generation Somali kids who are, in their 20s who were born here and have, it's so frustrating. And it is a story that repeats itself in American history with every new kind of ethnicity or community that comes over. There's always a challenge with first generation. And then it's a tale as old as time, I feel. And we keep falling into the same tropes. We expect our public officials. I'll be honest, I do not expect the president to act within the dignity of the office. that went away before that went away years and years ago. But to what you said, Brian, I kind of chuckled about like, yeah, if he maybe connected with a few Somali leaders in the Twin Cities, he probably would change his tune. Look how quickly he changed on Mayor-elect Mandami. Best friends. I haven't seen him.
Best friends.
I have not seen a man look like I have not seen that man look at another man with such love and affection. Can you imagine how jealous Donald Trump Jr. was when he saw those pictures of the way he just adoringly looked at Zoran? So anyway,
it's a son he always wanted. Well, and we can look at history here. This has happened. This has happened before. And for anyone who's going to email me or text me, I'm acknowledging. Honest to God, I really do see a connection. This is organized crime, is what it is. That has happened before with first generation Americans, whether it's the Italians or the Irish, and then the Russians, much more recently. But why that happens is because they are not embraced. They are not brought into the culture. They are left outside of the power structure, and then they find different ways to have to, create their new realities, their new, systems of essentially government, whatever it might be, and it quite often is outside of the law. And as a Republican, as quaint as it is, who believes that the job of those of us in politics is to win elections every once in a while, I bet that if we spent a little bit of time working with the Somali community, that we would find out that there are so many in the Venn diagram of beliefs between the Somali community and the Republican Party of Minnesota. There is a large overlap there, and especially probably with Somali men. I think that if we reached out to them, that we would have a really good shot of making them eventually Republican voters. But instead, we're just going to get older, whiter, angrier. Down in Florida, for the first time, we're losing the Cuban vote. It's not hard to figure this out. Yet it seems like the same mistakes get made over and over and over. Because I'm not trying to repeat myself, but the fraud is real, and there's the Democrats are doing a terrible job, in my opinion, of acknowledging that fraud. They will privately, same way kind of with Republicans, privately they'll talk about Trump, but not publicly. Well, privately you talk to Democrats and they acknowledge the problem and understand it and are as angry about it as anybody. But we're not talking about by my way of thinking, the feeble response by Democrats to all this fraud. We're not doing that. We could be doing that. We're not doing that. And whether it's feeding our future or housing stabilization, child care, addiction services, Medicaid, frontline worker pay, it goes on down the line. We're arguing about, well, is it hundreds of millions? Is it a billion? Is it billions? Let's figure it out. But if it's any amount of a number, that is money that is not going to its intended purpose, which is to help the lowest of the low. Because when you look at feeding our future, feeding children, housing stabilization, childcare, addiction, Medicaid, these are the people that the social safety net was there to help. And that's where the fraud is, and it cannot and will not and should not be tolerated.
Well, as a Democrat, I am publicly condemning any fraudulent, because again, to my earlier point, as a Democrat who believes in a strong social safety net, the worst thing that we can have is fraud and corruption in our social safety net programs. And I don't want to equate fraud to the Somali community explicitly, because there is fraud in other government public programs. The racial breakdown of the fraudulent PPP loans. There's been a lot of fraud in the last 5 years because we've seen an influx of public money into the system like we've never really seen before. And a lot of it was set up very quickly to get out the door very fast. And there are some really awful consequences of that. And the state of Minnesota does not have the systems literally the IT infrastructure to provide the oversight and the compliance and the approval of this money going out the door, and that is a huge problem.
Well, and before we get to another topic, Minnesota State Senator Zainab Mohammed, friend of the program, she did publicly acknowledge and appreciate what Senator Abler said. She put his letter up on Twitter. So we can work together. It can happen. And it would be nice if it didn't have to be on something as frivolous as name calling, when it could be done for something that improves the lives of Minnesotans. One other thing that's going on now, it certainly can be argued whether these things are connected or not. But very recently, there has been a large uptick in ICE and their presence in all parts of the Twin Cities area, and that is something that is I know people that have been trying to thwart ICE, and that's something that I think you got to be careful about as well. But then you also hear these horror stories about what's happening to parents and children. I was speaking with my wife recently about just the fear of people kind of in her sphere of what happens to the children should something at someone's workplace or something like that. And there is due process. There are places that ICE can go and ICE can't go, and we need to find ways to make sure that they're working within the law, but also that we are not outside of the law trying to, protect the worst of the worst. But Allison, what are you kind of hearing? I know that on the DFL side, there's just a lot of outrage about this.
There's a lot of outrage because there has been a lot of seemingly illegal actions on behalf of ICE going into buildings. Today, there was ICE that went into Cedar Riverside, which is one of the largest residential complexes of Somali residents in the city of Minneapolis. They didn't have like a warrant or the legal documentation to be in the building, so they were actually escorted out by the owner that I think Chris Sherman is the owner, and he was actually in the building doing some tenant organizing because they're doing upgrades to bathrooms and kitchens throughout Cedar Riverside. And so he was there, and they have an ICE protocol in their organizational documents, and the ICE agent did not have a reason, but he walked in the door, and so he was escorted out. It's stories like that, when there's just an overzealous use of power and an illegal use of power, that are, again, like to kind of to my point, if you abuse the system, the people do not trust the system. If ICE abuses its powers, if it goes at places where it's not legally supposed to, if they're detaining U.S. citizens without cause, it just erodes the trust. It erodes. And so right now I'm feeling like we're in kind of a free fall crisis with a lack of trust because an abuse, and whether it be a fraudulent abuse of programs or fraudulent and abuse of power. And so I understand that there are individuals in this country that have committed crimes and they may not have legal status. And that is the guys. I mean, when Trump was elected, he said, we're just going to go after the criminals. And a lot of people were like, okay, but they're not going after the criminals, just the criminals. And that is not sitting well with a lot of people, especially when they don't have the legal validation to back it up.
Well, and I'm a Constitution bobo. I teach it. I'm teaching it at Concordia University right now, and we not that long ago we were discussing the Bill of Rights and the Fourth Amendment. And the Bill of Rights, which is the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, that is a reaction to how the newly formed American experiment about the abuses of the crown, about how they were treated and mistreated by the king, and they wanted to make sure that the country that they were creating didn't do the same thing. So the first 10 amendments to the Constitution are the founders of our country speaking to themselves and to future generations about how to limit governmental power. So ICE I'm a supporter. I mean, people are going to get mad at me about that. I want them to do their job, but I want them to do it within the confines of the Fourth Amendment, because for the very reason you say, once we start losing faith in our institutions, then we have chaos. And then we have people acting, illegally on their own. You can Google these things and find out where ICE can go, where ICE can't go. There was an incident really close to the school that I teach at, a different school at Augsburg, where allegedly a very bad man who was here doing bad things and here illegally was captured by ICE. And he was captured arguably in a place that they could be, and that the school was trying to prevent that. That's not cool either. But learn what is legal, what is not legal, and then act within it. Can ICE come to a school? Yes. Can they go into a classroom? Not without a warrant. So make sure that you know what they can have. They can be in public areas, but to go into private areas, they have to have a warrant, has to be signed by a judge, which meant it went through the due process. And we have to believe in that. We have to. And once we start saying, well, it's fine because it's just these illegals, well, guess what? History tells us it never stops there. And I'm not even saying that that's where Trump is going to go, but the next Trump, the Democrat Trump after that, and the Democrat Trump after that. We have to always be looking ahead as to what are the worst case scenarios if we just kind of say, well, the Constitution applies more to us than to them. Well, eventually the us become the them, and that's where anarchy starts.
Yeah. And like this morning, there was a woman, or I think it was yesterday morning, a woman detained for 24 hours. Yeah. For being a watcher. She was outside in the neighborhood watching ICE agents, and they arrested and detained her for 24 hours. That's obscene. Yes. And multiple people that they've detained have been U.S. citizens. There was a young Somali woman who was, frankly, who she felt was assaulted, sexually assaulted by some ICE agents. She is a U.S. citizen. They let her go once her husband showed up with her passport to prove that she was a citizen. But it's the lack of warrant, and that was the main reason why at Riverside today that the ICE agent was escorted out by ownership, because they didn't have a warrant. And again, it's this like lawlessness in which they're operating that is going to already eroded trust or validity of what they're doing.
When the government becomes, just another flavor of criminal, that's a problem. And we're not going to stand for it. I believe in America. I believe in our Constitution. I believe in our law enforcement. I 100% do. And when you are the government, when you are law enforcement, you have to do things better. You have to make sure that you are not doing things, they call it in law school, they call it fruit of the poisonous tree. You can't arrest somebody without due process, because eventually you're going to go to court with that person, and it's going to get thrown out. You don't do it. It's also called the exclusionary rule. I spent a lot of money to learn those two things. But anyway, so this is something we're going to continue to keep an eye on. This is our state. This is our country. And we need to keep it as safe and as above board as possible. And that's only going to happen when us regular folk are as vigilant as the people with a stake in it right now.
Yeah, and to be clear, like the impacts of it, I mean, people are in hiding. They are not going out and shopping. They are not going out to eat. They are not it's just so harmful to people's ability to live their lives. And it is awful.
And before we move on, I'm just going to reiterate, ICE has a real job to do, and I want them to do it, and I want them to do it effectively and constitutionally. That's all I'm saying. Let's get the bad guys. I'm all in favor of it. let's move on to plugs. We have some exciting plugs individually. We got plugs together. It's fun for the Brallison show. So, Allison, do you want to start off?
Sure. Biggest plug, or no, you and I will be speaking to the Humphrey School on Friday, to the
Yeah,
Humphrey
yeah.
Fellows. Very exciting. Thank you for having us.
Yes, no, that's and I've spoken there individually. I think Amy and I have spoken there before, but they contacted me. They said, "Hey, who from the other side of the aisle have you worked with very well?" Well, I mean, Allison and I are at the same firm now. We weren't always, but we have always worked together from the two sides of the coin, and I'm very much looking forward to be able to talk about that to the Humphrey cohort.
Yes, awesome. And then we are also starting this week every Wednesday at 9 a.m. You can find me on the Al Travis Show as the resident Democrat for the more conservative framed radio show throughout greater Minnesota. So I'm looking forward to that. We discuss fun topics like what we do on this show, but a little bit more pointed debate. So 9 a.m. on Wednesdays on the Al Travis Show.
And Amy's not here today, but Amy also every other Friday is on the Al Travis Show, and I am on as a fill-in from time to time when Amy is elsewhere. But a couple other things. Amy and I also every Tuesday are on the BS Show with Bob Sansevier. I have another show called Wrong About Sports that I do with a friend of the program, Carla Bigham. We do those with Gabe Monday, usually around 10 o'clock. We talk about the football weekend that just happened, and then we talk prospectively about the Monday night games. And I also want to thank the Minnesota Asphalt Pavement Association, because they had me up at their annual meeting in St. Cloud yesterday, and it got to give a legislative update and participate in their year-end awards presentation. I've done it a couple years in a row. It's always a really good time. Told some jokes. They always bomb. I bombed so hard at this event. I'm sure they've grown as soon as they see me go up there. But I told a new Godfather joke. Seemed to do a little bit better than some of my political humor in years past. So thank you very much, Minnesota Asphalt Pavement Association. So with that, let's go to Spanks and Thanks. Allison.
All right. Bringing back an oldie but a goodie. My spank this week is for the one and only Catherine Elizabeth Hudson, known popularly as Katy Perry. If you've listened to this show while I have been on, I frequently spank Katy Perry because I find her I find her presence to be grating. But this week I am spanking her because her feud with her veteran, Katy Perry and her ex Orlando Bloom purchased a home in 2020 and then got into a legal battle with the seller, who is a elderly vet who is right now in hospice care. He is literally on his deathbed, and she is suing him for $1.8 million. Now, did he probably maybe act in a way that deserved that? I think so. But the headlines do her no favors in that the headline is Katy Perry triumphs in bitter property battle over bedridden veteran in hospice care. So once again, Katy Perry has enough money to get on a joyride of a trip to space, but she cannot leave this dying veteran alone to die in peace. So Katy Perry, she's dating Justin Trudeau, aka a poor man's Orlando Bloom, and just continues the hits. She's had a rough 2025, but in my honest opinion, she deserves it. So Katy Perry, you're spanked. Stop being a menace and write some good music. You gave us such bangers, and you just are. You're losing it. So that is my spank. My thank is to a little bit of local political controversy. And as a proud and loud Democrat, I can go after the former GOP chair, Miss Jennifer Carnahan, who is currently less than a year into her mayoral service in the city of Nisswa and is being directly asked to resign by her council members due to some toxic and erratic and frankly cruel behavior that she has exhibited towards city staff and like the 7 city administrators that she's gone through. For folks that outside of the Minneapolis and St. Paul city government structures, most suburban cities or small cities are really staff run. The city administrator is kind of the city CEO. They're the day-to-day. Council members, mayors are like part-time, less than part-time. And so the ability, but they do have kind of unilateral authority to hire and fire the city CEO, the city administrator, and she has gone through several. She is roiled with controversy and instability and erratic behavior since she was the GOP chair, and it just continues with everything. Every stop she has, there's drama, and the underlying common denominator is Jennifer Carnahan. It is not everybody else, but she seems to point all 10 fingers at everybody else, yet it's still her. So the city of Nisswa, I think like 40 residents showed up last night at a city council meeting after it had snowed 8 inches. So they are serious and they are watching, and I'm going to pop my popcorn and see how this one plays out. So,
well, Nisswa is beautiful. Let's keep it that way. And I believe that there was more discussion today, and then it's going to carry over to the December meeting to see if there's cause to make her resign. So we shall see. Yes. All right. Well, I have 2 spanks. First spank is going to be to Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who was from CD5, which for those of you who aren't familiar with that is like that's Minneapolis and kind of some of the western suburbs here in Minnesota, where she was on Face the Nation. And when talking about what we talked about at the beginning of the program with allegations of fraud with members of the Somali community and the connection to terrorism, she said that she doesn't think that really is true, and it might be, it might not be. The jury's still out exactly where that money has gone. But she said if it did happen, that it's a failure of the FBI to catch it and the failure of the courts to prosecute it. And I'm going to take a strong umbrage to that, because it is not that you commit crimes and you get away with it until you don't. And I'm not saying that's 100% what she was saying, but there's an intimation there that it was the FBI's job to find this out, and it's not a big deal that it happened because the FBI did something wrong. That's obviously the wrong way to look at this, and inappropriate and shouldn't be said. And so for that, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, you are spanked. My second spank, let me get to the right spot here. My second spank is going to be to Governor Tim Walz, and to a lesser extent, outgoing mayor of St. Paul, Melvin Carter, who, when the media has kind of talked to them about their responsibility in detecting the fraud that has happened both with the city of St. Paul and with the state of Minnesota, they both said, no, we don't have responsibility for catching the fraudsters. We should be celebrated for putting them in jail. Is that true? No, it is not true. It's another bending of the truth, which is inappropriate. These were federal prosecutions. These were federal, FBI probes. The FBI brought these allegations to the state of Minnesota. Yes, BCA, some other people helped out here and there, but this was a federal operation. We all need to work together, but it is wrong to say that these are people that were put in jail by Governor Walz and by Mayor Carter. That's just not true. And so with that, they are spanked. Well, had a lot of fun on this week's Brallison podcast, but I am Republican strategist and Twin City Sugar, Brian McDaniel.
And I am perpetual Catherine Elizabeth Hudson hater, Allison Nessie.
And we are
Wrong about everything.
Take us away, Gabe.